Hi, I'm Michael Richard with Recirculating Farms Coalition. There are so many ways that you can grow food, and today we're going to discuss a few options that you have. The four main methods that we like to use are growing in containers, growing in raised beds, growing in the ground, or our favorite, alternative systems like hydroponics and aeroponics. So now we're going to talk about raised beds. Raised beds are growing spaces that are usually 6 to 18 inches off of the ground, and your plants are separated from the ground by something like wood, concrete, or brick, or some other growing material. Here at the farm, we have 18-inch beds, and we use a layer of rock, mulch, and soil to separate our plants. The bottom layer of the rock helps the bed drain very well. The middle layer of mulch is there for organic matter for our beneficial microbes and our beneficial insects like worms to feed on and break down over time. The top layer of soil is our initial growing media where we plant our seeds or our plant starts. Big benefits of having a grow space like a raised bed is that you have a lot of control over it. You're able to control the soil erosion because it doesn't waste away through your beds. You're able to control the soil quality by adding amendments that won't leach out. And you're also able to stop it from being compacted because you don't have to walk on it so much. Another big benefit is that there's a lot less weeds because it's not so close to the ground, and your plants are able to help smother out the weed competition because they're grown more closely together. Some of the cons of a raised bed are the fact that you have initial startup costs for building materials. You also have to have the know-how to put these building materials together and have the tools. Another con is when you use materials like wood or bamboo or structures like that, they break down over time and you'll have to replace them in the future. Now we're going to talk about alternative growing systems. Alternative growing systems can include hydroponics, aquaponics, and aeroponics. These systems use water as their main growing media, and they recirculate this water over and over through the system to pass the nutrients to plants. One of the big pros of a system like this is that you can grow it basically anywhere. You can do it on your rooftop, in a closet, on a window ledge. Wherever you have the space, you can make a scalable size growing system that will work to your needs. Another big pro of this is that it recirculates water over and over, so you conserve water and you're not having to constantly pour water into soil that evaporates later on. Another big pro is that there's very little weed pressure. There's not much space for the weeds to grow, and when you do see a weed, it's very easy to pluck it out. Some of the cons of a system like this are having the upstart cost of these materials, and some of the materials not being very sustainable. Sometimes you use things like plastics or cocoa coir, which actually is sustainable, or its cousin that's not so sustainable, rock wool. These are things that you put your seeds in when you're using alternative growing medias. Another con of using a system like this is that you have other startup costs like nutrients or animals that need to go into your system. For instance, if you use an aeroponic or hydroponic system, you must buy nutrients that will be recirculated through your system over and over for your plants to use. If you use an aquaponic system, you need fish to use in your system and produce the nutrients. The fish effluent, aka fish poop, is what breaks down in your water and nitrifies and feeds your plants. So before you purchase or set up one of these systems, make sure you do your research. And we have a lot of resources on our website. We'll also have some videos dedicated to these systems very soon, so be on the lookout. Now we're going to talk about growing in soil in the ground. Right now we're at the Bywater, New Orleans location for River Clean Greens in New Orleans. So, some of the pros of growing in the ground is that you have great water retention. This will help your plants from drying out and staying very hydrated. Another big pro, you can use gardening and farm tools that you can't usually use in containers or in raised beds. These tools can help you till your farm or garden, help you plant seeds, and even help you harvest. Another pro of this is that there's very low construction, very little cost, because the soil is already right here for you. But a big thing to think about when you're growing in ground is to get your soil tested. This should be the first thing that you do when you decide to grow in ground. Soil tests will tell you if you have any contaminants in your soil and if you need to add any amendments. Here at River Queen Greens, they had their soil tested the first 2 years that they were here, and they amended their soil with horse manure each year. By amending their soil with horse manure, they fixed a lot of the issues with nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other trace minerals that were missing from their soil. If you don't have access to horse manure, you can get rabbit droppings, deer droppings, worm castings, compost, you name it. There are various amendments out there, and we have resources for you on our website, and there are also various resources online. We've also talked about this in previous videos, so why don't you go check them out. Some of the cons of growing in ground is that you are so close to the ground, it's very hard to protect your plants from pests and weeds. Some of these pests might even be animals like dogs and squirrels, and it can be very difficult to keep them from eating or damaging your plants. Another con for this can be the fact that you do have to get soil amendments. So these amendments might need to be purchased or brought in through trucking or distributing through an online website. You also might have contaminants in the ground, which will require you to dig up the soil and get new soil brought in. Another big flaw of growing in ground is the fact that you have to bend down, kneel down, and do a lot of that hard work on the ground level. Unlike raised beds and container gardens, which come up to your level and make the job a lot easier.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily with Recirculating Farms, and I'm going to talk a little bit about container gardening. Container gardening is basically anything that's not growing in the ground. So you can use a terracotta pot, like I have my rosemary in here, any other type of pot, a bucket, a milk carton. There's a lot of different ways that you can grow plants in different types of containers. So some of the main benefits of container gardening are that it's mobile. If your plant's not in an ideal growing environment, you can move it to a place that is ideal for the amount of sunlight it needs and things like that. Being mobile also means it's accessible. So you can place your plants on countertops or in higher elevated areas so that you don't need to bend or kneel. It's also a great starting point. You can start with 1 pot, 2 pots, 3 pots, and be able to grow, tend to your plants in a small scale way so you don't get too overwhelmed with how big your project is. Some of the cons of container gardening are that they have an implied cost. So there's the cost of pots, the cost of soil, the cost of the plants and seeds. It's not a lot, but it is something to consider. They do dry out more quickly, so you're going to need to pay attention to them, make sure that you're watering them with the amount of frequency that they need. They will grow out of their pots eventually and need to be repotted, so they require a little bit more maintenance on that side. But a good thing is that they are resistant to pests and diseases. So if you have one plant that's disease-ridden, that's not an indicator that your other plant on the other side of your balcony has that same disease, and you'll be able to separate those. So those are all things to consider. Container gardening is a great option for those who are looking to start out.
And this is my grow tent. Grow tents are great for growing indoors because they come in various sizes and there's bound to be something to fit your space. Something to consider when buying a grow tent is getting grow lights. These come in various shapes and sizes, wattages, and price points. You should do a little bit of research to find out how much light you'll need to fill up your space. Something else to consider when buying a grow tent is a power strip to help protect your electronics. Something else that comes in handy is a fan to help with great air circulation, which keeps down disease, mold, and helps you control the temperature. We also have a humidity and temperature gauge, which also comes in handy. Grow tents allow you to grow in various ways, such as aquaponics, hydroponics, aeroponics, and in soil like we have here. Right now we're growing some basil, aloe, hibiscus, and ginger. Thanks for listening. Talk to y'all next time.